What would you do if you win $100,000? One player really needs to answer this question in exactly 4 days. But he is not the only one, because in total this weekend the best of the best Flesh and Blood players compete for a total of $300,000 cash prize in the World Championship and the San Jose Calling. In New Jersey and Lille we kinda saw a European dominance at the Pro Tour. But the question is, will we see a European World Champion or someone break the European rise in Flesh and Blood? In this video, we will go in depth about what could happen this weekend, but for sure take a deep look in why this event shakes up the whole TCG industry. So let's jump right into it. Hey, my name is Alex, hope you're doing well. With this video, we are going on one of many journeys together. Tomorrow we will travel from Germany to San Jose in the US, where the Flesh and Blood World Championship is going down. Join me in 4 days of trading card madness. For those of you who are new to this, Flesh and Blood is a TCG run by Legend Story Studios from New Zealand, with currently slightly more than 37,000 players in their organized play leaderboard. Let me know in the comments if you are new to this or if we see us in San Jose. When we look at the top players that compete on a high level, of course we not only see European people, but rather strong outputs from all around the world. But you need to admit that from the results of the first 2 Pro Tours, we saw a heavy dominance of European players in the top cut, with 7 out of the top 8 in Pro Tour Lille coming from European countries. At this point, shout out to Fino, who also made it and came all the way from the US. But what really speaks for the European strengths is Pablo Pintor from Spain taking down Florin Christian Login from Austria at the first Pro Tour. And at the second Pro Tour, Matthew Fawkes from the UK won against Polish Bartosz Zimba. And to this point, Pro Tours were the biggest and highest ranked tournaments. Of course, not only the big Pro Tours are factoring in which players are invited to Worlds, it all comes down to bringing the best of the best from all around the globe together in one epic weekend. Winning a professional tournament invite, or PTI, in major big tournaments is one way to participate, which is heavily presented through the national season, which we had this year in September with nearly 40 countries represented, but also through callings and battle-hardened events throughout this year. And when we look at the calling winners, one player really stands out, because Michael Hamilton not only won multiple callings and battle-hardens, but holds the current first place in the worldwide classic constructed ELO rating. But Matthew Fawkes is nearby and could push him off his throne this weekend, maybe. Some might say Michael's international performance is mediocre because he did not battle his way to either Pro Tour top 8. But nonetheless, he is one of the hottest players to look out for when competing for the crown. Then we have all the players from Asia who did not even attend the Pro Tour yet, with Calvin Law from Hong Kong holding the first place on the worldwide XP leaderboard, and Chu Heng-Ang from Singapore, who is sitting at the first place of worldwide ELO for Limited. I really hope that we see some shake-up from the Asian community this weekend. And it really interests me, which players will we see emerge that are not famous yet? Flesh and Blood had proven throughout the year that even players who had not played a TCG before can take a strong approach. The Calling Utrecht winner, Sander Neft, did not expect to win at all. And also I met Armin from Sweden, who took down a ProQuest in Paris. This means the world champion might not even be on our radar yet. And what makes watching which player will rise to the top even more interesting is that we have not only one format that is played. In Pro Tour New Jersey, it was one format, and we had 2 formats in Pro Tour Lille. This time, players need to win a triangle of formats, adding in Blitz to Classic Constructed and Limited. So the world champion really needs to figure out every inch of the game. And not only do he needs to figure out all the decks and which cards to pick, but he needs to stay in a positive mindset the whole weekend and keep his mentality strong. For me, it will be very interesting to see, is a veteran with decades of experience or a newbie showing us how you win the title of the first ever Flesh and Blood World Champion. In the end, there can be some kind of a pressure on the players, because we are not only facing who will be the first world champion, but who will take home $100,000 in cash prize and also the Champions Prize card, which was a one-of-one in the Pro Tour format, worth around 20 grand on its own. And that is something we do not see in all TCGs. Coming from Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember YCS winners posing with their Nintendo Switch and a prize card trophy, which is pretty valuable depending on which one you get. And I was astonished seeing Joshua Schmidt taking the win home a third time at the last YCS in Utrecht. Like, I remember that guy doing his totally awesome deck profile in 2016 after YCS Prague, which was huge for the international Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. Because back then, we kind of had a situation like in Fab, where Billy Brake, I think his name was, from the US came down to Europe and challenged Joshua. And a point that I also want to touch on is the importance of teams, because Pablo Pintor showed us. Of course, you need to be an outstanding player, but you are only as strong as the people who you are surrounding yourself with. For Pablo, the Spanish Sunflower Samurais are his home and family, the people he grew up and bonds very deeply with. They are sharing the fun of traveling together. And they even come with very stylish, recognizable Hawaiian shirts. Together, they won the Team Blitz calling in Madrid. We of course have international teams like Team Dragon Shield, who just added Isaac Crew to their roster. And with multiple national champions, Nick, Matt, Tarek and Isaac are a fearsome team to face at Worlds. Isaac even got 4th place in New Jersey, so will we see him take another step into the top cut this time? We looked at some of the players we might see this weekend bringing fire to the table. Let's quickly look at where you can experience something like in Flesh and Blood somewhere else. When we look at Magic the Gathering, despite celebrating their 30-year anniversary, they are focusing on online tournaments and suspending their in-real-life pro play for an undefined time. We already touched on Yu-Gi-Oh!, which also had a very competitive World Championship, but as far as I know, without cash prizes. There are other TCGs like Dragon Ball Super or Digimon, but it is safe to say that Flesh and Blood has the best organized play in the world. Though we can take a look at some other sports to get a taste of what privilege you get as an athlete in Flesh and Blood. Of course, poker and esports is on another level with their marketing power and prize pool. But what about Ironman, where the world champion of triathlon is crowned? Or athletes that compete for Olympics? At least from the prize money point, Flesh and Blood seems really good in comparison to those. Only that an invite for Flesh and Blood events is easily buyable with the right money. And athletes in sports can just go to an auction house and buy themselves into competing for an Olympic gold medal. I really like to read your thoughts about this in the comments. For someone like me, who not grew up on MTG, I want to round it up with talking a bit more about LSS and MTG. For Flesh and Blood, everything begins with the most popular trading card game, Magic the Gathering. Not saying that it is the best TCG, but you have to acknowledge that Magic the Gathering laid the foundation for Flesh and Blood. And Wizards laid the foundation for TCG Pro athletes and the organized play system. Now the interesting part is, the creator of Flesh and Blood, James White himself, has a deep-rooted connection to MTG. In 1993, when Magic first came out, young James White was around 14 years old. Not only did he play in multiple world championships and winning New Zealand nationals, but he worked for Hasbro and Upper Deck in the organized play program. His work was very instrumental in bringing organized play to his home, New Zealand. So you can kind of say Magic made the vision for Flesh and Blood in James White come to life. In 2012, James and his team decided to start working on Legend Story Studios. With their launch in 2019, James White not only wanted to bring a whole new resource system to the TCG market, but make sure that the prodigy of coming together to play at your local game store and at big tournaments can keep on living. Because those LGSs and tournaments are home for people that love to play games in real life. And the sad truth for James and his team was that the trend was going more and more into the direction of moving away from bringing people together at an LGS. Rather, big companies invested in the build-up of digital games and playing online. That's why LSS decided to craft their slogan, bringing people together in the common language of playing great games. Let's round this video up with this core message, because that is what is it all about at the World Championship. Forming friendships, but also rivalries. Break the boundaries between countries and bringing people together to compete against each other, but also about learning and exploring the possibilities of this new game together. Ultimately, this game is changing people's lives. Just like Pablo's, and even no one expected him to win before the event. An unknown player that laid the foundation for a whole new generation of players, but now, as he is on everybody's radar as one of the most powerful athletes out there, maybe we see an assassin coming out of the dark to take the crown, just like in the upcoming Set Dynasty. That is like one of the most fun parts of Flesh and Blood, right? The players are kind of bringing the story behind the game to life. Personally, I really hope we see heroes like Faye or Dromai in the top cut, before we move on to the next set that comes out right after Worlds. In the end, it is also about who wins $300,000 in prize money and who brings home the trophy for being the first ever Flesh and Blood World Champion.